Hello everybody, this is Derek again. I'm here to bring you a video for the countdown to the Season 5 premiere of The Walking Dead. We are exactly 67 days away. I'm going to continue the countdown with a video today based on, do I think the Ricktatorship will and should return for the 5th season of AMC's The Walking Dead? That's what I'm going to be discussing. Again, as usual, if you have not been caught, if you're not caught up on The Walking Dead at this time, please exit the video and come back at a later time because there may be spoilers. Okay, so as we know, the Ricktatorship is a term that was coined for the end of the second season into the end of the third season that basically had Rick in charge. He was the one that was making all the decisions for the group. Nobody challenged him. He was basically the one man in charge in a dictatorship kind of role in the group. So we call it the Ricktatorship because he was the one that was making the calls. Rick established this at the end of the second season after the farm is overrun. When they were in their first campsite, he was like, this isn't a democracy anymore. I make the calls, and if you don't like it, you can leave the group and try to do better than me. And nobody left. And I think that's because they realized that Rick does have the potential to lead. And he does show that. And I asked myself, should the Ricktatorship return? And I think there's a couple things that weigh for Rick. One is that Rick is a former police officer, so he definitely has a lot of knowledge about how to be a leader. Police officers sometimes have to make decisions on the job that can basically either cost or save lives. And I feel like Rick is able to make those kind of decisions in a post-apocalyptic Walking Dead world. As you have a zombie apocalypse where you're going to be making decisions on where you're going to stay, whether you're going to fight zombies, attack zombies, run, all those things. Rick has the capability of making those decisions, so he has that weighing in favor of him. Another thing is that Rick shows that he is capable of making those decisions, and not only that, he's not only a leader that can lead, he can also lead by example. As you saw many times, Rick is willing to put his life on the line for his group members, particularly in the third season opener. Whenever they were taking over the prison and they're deciding, Rick's deciding what everybody should do, and he says, okay, you guys go up in the tower and you guys go over to the gate, the fence, and start stabbing the walkers that are in the field, and I'll run for the gate. Rick could have assigned somebody else that job, just because he didn't feel like doing it. He's the man that's making the calls, and I feel at times Rick was very selfless, where he didn't make other people do things because he realized he didn't want to put his group members at risk. He does have the group at heart, and he does, feel for them and think about them as he makes his decisions. And I think that this is something that Rick does very well throughout the series. Most of the time, it is Rick going out there and putting his life on the line for the rest of the group. Not just Carl, but everybody. He looks at them as a family. And as we've seen in the trailer, there's a quote that he states saying, all these people are my family, and if you hurt any one of them, I'm going to kill you. And Rick feels for everybody in that group. He cares about them. And that's why he makes a good leader, is that a good leader doesn't just make decisions, without thinking them through, without thinking about the others that are involved in your decision making. You think about some of the greatest decisions that were ever made in history weren't taken lightly, and definitely we're thinking about, well, not only how is this going to benefit me, but how is this going to negatively affect me. You have battle decisions like D-Day especially. I can only imagine whenever Eisenhower and them were making the plans for D-Day, you realize if you were among those first boats going on to the shore that day, you probably weren't going to survive because of how terrible the battle it was, about how terrible position they were in. Rick takes into consideration all of the things that are going to happen, and if he realizes that he is the better choice to do something, he's going to step up and he's going to do it. And I think that that's an advantage for Rick. Another thing is that he really just is tough as a person, and he's able to withstand a lot, which he has taken a beating a few times. He has definitely gone through some terrible ordeals, like when he lost Lori, when he lost T-Dog, I guess, that they were people that were in his original group. And not only that, but even losing Herschel, he's still able to bounce back somewhat and is still able to make the decisions some of the times. So I feel like he does have some things going for him. However, when against whether it should not, one being, will that lead Rick back to a dark place that he was in back in season 3? Because as you know, after he lost Lori, he started seeing visions of her. He started hearing her voice and Amy and Jackie and Jim's voice on the phone in the basement of the prison. He starts having psychotic episodes. He doesn't necessarily make the wisest decisions all the time. He kicks Tyrese and the group out because he sees that vision of Lori and just freaks out, and it caused them to leave, and it was really starting to turn people away. And I worry that if Rick becomes the leader again and starts making all these decisions, it may lead him back down that dark path. Now, I don't know if he's going to see visions of Lori necessarily, but I think if the stress really gets to him, then it's not going to be a good thing. It's going to really hurt the group. And I have to wonder, if Rick does step up in that position, how well is he going to be able to lead these guys to Washington? Because I'm sure that they're going to have losses along the way. And how is Rick going to take that? Well, I don't know if he's going to be able to take it well. I think that stepping back for him in the 4th season was something that was really, really great for Rick. And I think it was better for the storyline, too. Seeing Rick take a step back, heal from all the things and the hard decisions he had to make, all the terrible things that had happened in the 3rd season, farming with Herschel and Carl, really, we saw the softer side of Rick, and it helped bring him back. And you know how they say, they emphasize this a couple times in the 4th season, not everyone is too far gone. You can come back. Rick came back. Rick was having those psychotic breakdowns, definitely did a lot of terrible things during that time, killing Tomas, not necessarily things that are wrong. I mean, you could say that he was justified, but it doesn't necessarily affect you any less. Just because something isn't, just because something is justified doesn't mean that you don't feel bad about it or that it doesn't affect you. It most certainly does. Just about everything you do in that world will. So I wonder, will Rick end up being back in a, dangerous place if he takes over the leadership role? Especially with all of the stress that he incurred the first time, will that come back? And how will that affect him and Carl as they continue to develop that father-son relationship along the way? So it'll be interesting to see. In regards to will it come back, this is an interesting one now. Because you have to wonder, with all the people that have stepped up and led the group since then, are they just going to let Rick make those decisions again? And I think that in some ways, most of them will, yes. As you recall, Daryl, back in the season 4 episode 2 episode, said to Rick as they were digging the graves for the people that died when D-Block was attacked by the Walker Patrick and Walker Greg and the other walkers that were in there, he basically said, hey Rick, anytime you want to step up, you're definitely, you're welcome to become a part of the council. You're welcome to be part of the decision making. And I think they recognize Rick got them through that winter. He did. One way or another. We don't know how, but he got them through that winter, and that is very important. And I think that a lot of the characters are going to remember that, realize that when it was tough, before they had this home in the prison, Rick was the one that was leading them. Rick got them all through alive. And part of that may be, the writing. You didn't want to kill characters off in the in between the seasons. But in another way, I also think that that is realistic. It is possible to keep many of your group members alive, potentially all of them, depending how it works. It's definitely possible. Rick shows that he can do that, and I think that a lot of them from before the prison, like Glenn and Maggie, Daryl, Carol, even people like Tyrese and Sasha maybe who joined later, maybe even Bob too, I think they're willing to let him step up to the plate again. I think that there is one obstacle that Rick has to overcome, and I really hope that they bring this up next season, is Abraham. Introducing Abraham into the story definitely changes things up for Rick because of the fact that Abraham is a leader in it himself. You know, Abraham has a lot of leadership qualities, and you see him in Rosita, Eugene, and Abraham's group. He's the one that's really making the calls, even though he's protecting Eugene. You know, even though his priority is revolved around Eugene, he is usually the one that's making the decision. He doesn't really let anybody else make those decisions, and I think he's going to have a hard time just letting Rick, you know, make all the calls. In the trailer, there's a specific scene when Rick and Abraham are looking at each other, and Abraham yells at him, "Do you know what's at stake?" And I think that automatically shows Rick and Abraham are going to be at odds this season in one way or another, which is something that happens in the comic books, and it's something that I think is very, very important that they need to exploit this season, is Abraham and Rick's relationship, because it doesn't start out great. Yeah, whenever they get further into the Alexandria safe zone, it gets better. You know, they start to respect each other a little more, but before that, they didn't respect each other at all, really. You know, Rick would always question, you know, why Abraham was making the decisions that he made, you know, like leaving Maggie to die on the ground. You know, he was willing to shoot Maggie in the head after she hung herself. Rick was like, no, we need to save Maggie. We need to, you know, he's making certain decisions. And it actually, in the comics, it leads Abraham to almost shoot Rick. Rick is almost killed by a walker. I believe that he was leaving to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and Abraham was on watch. And he gets attacked by a walker. And there's a really brief moment where Abraham has the gun. He could shoot the walker, and he doesn't. And he acknowledges that to Rosita in that scene. He goes, I could have shot Rick. And in fact, he even admitted he was thinking about shooting Rick in general before the walker showed up, and he saved Rick's life. And I think that Abraham's going to have a tough time just letting an outsider like Rick make the decisions for everybody, especially for a big mission like Eugene, who he has faith in, has the cure to all this. So I don't think that Abraham is really going to let Rick just step up. Now, what I could see happening is, you know, Abraham may start making calls that may be the wrong ones. And Rick might also make calls that are wrong as well. And what you may find is that one of them may make a call that's so bad that it results in people getting killed. And that may be the tipping point as to whether Rick will step back up into his leadership role that he had at the, you know, before the prison and during the early times of the prison. So I think it's really just going to depend on what happens in this season and the decisions that are made along the way, and just how much is it going to be of an Rick's group versus Terminus versus everybody working together and just hunkering down. And if Rick's the one that's making the calls, Rick's the one making the calls. So we're just going to have to see how the storyline goes. But should the Ricktatorship come back? I think yes. You know, showing that Rick had the capability of leading them before they got to the prison, everybody survived. I think that Rick has the capability to lead them to Washington, and he can make the wisest decisions, and he's shown that he has the capability to do that. He has the history. Will it come back? I think it will partially, and I think that what's going to end up happening is this is going to decide, you know, they have to decide, is Rick going to be the one to make the call, or is Abraham going to step in the way and really try to make it hard for Rick to take over that position? And I think we are going to see some, you know, Abraham and Rick butting heads along the way, and I really think they should exploit that. That's very important. It was a very important storyline in the comics. Abraham is not the kind of character that would just let somebody else make the calls, especially for a mission this important. So I think he's going to give Rick a run for his money, and I can't wait to see how that works out. I'm going to bring this video to an end. I think I've brought up all the main points that I was going to. I do think that the Ricktatorship should come back, and I think it definitely will in many ways. If you have any comments, feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to ask me any questions. Message me. You know, I have a lot of various topics that I can use for the countdown to the Walking Dead Season 5 premiere. We are getting closer. 67 days. Each day that goes by is a day we get closer there, guys. So I'm really excited. I can't wait. And I want to thank you all again for watching. Thank you again, and you have a good evening.